Today, we're learning how to make LB. LB is the solution that the bacteria will be growing in. We need to provide them the complete environment, all the minerals and nutrients that they're going to need to be able to grow. So to do this, we need to have sodium chloride. A certain amount of salt is necessary. If you don't have any salt, remember we've previously learned that your proteins are going to aggregate. We don't want to cause aggregation in our E. coli while we're trying to grow them. And you're going to be weighing out 10 grams of sodium chloride in a little weighing dish. You're going to be weighing out 10 grams of bactotryptone and 5 grams of yeast extract. So 10 grams of bactotryptone and 5 grams of yeast extract. And this is per liter that you're going to make. So you have a liter of water that you're going to put into a beaker. And it's important to put it into the beaker first and get it stirring, because the bactotryptone and the yeast extract are very gummy as soon as they are wet. So you want to make sure that your solution is stirring very, very well before you try to add anything in there. So you're going to add in your 10 grams of your sodium chloride, and you can do these in any order. Your 10 grams of your bactotryptone. And once it's stirring, then it will be going around the entire solution. And 5 grams of yeast extract. And you're going to allow it to dissolve. It will take a couple minutes for it to dissolve. It will not be instantaneous, but it also should not take more than 5 minutes or so to dissolve. Sometimes people have this going so fast that they have lots of bubbles being stirred up into the solution, and they mistake the bubbles for particles that are not yet dissolved. So if you ever need to check and see whether everything has been dissolved, you can simply turn it off when it's stirring, and if you see solid particles then falling to the bottom, quickly turn it back on and keep stirring. After it's dissolved, we're going to get it to the autoclave immediately. The reason you need to autoclave it right away is you have just made the perfect environment for bacteria to flourish. And we're not working in a sterile environment here, nor are these bottles sterile inside. So the moment you make everything into a solution, any bacteria that's in the air, any molds that are in the air are going to come in here and be able to grow. So as soon as this solution is made, then you will take it to the autoclave and autoclave it immediately. You cannot wait till the next day. You cannot put it in the cold room and hope that the solution will be good. I tried that when I was a new grad student. It does not work. The mistake I made, I said, oh, you know, I made an LB late in the day. I don't want to autoclave right now. I'll come in and do it tomorrow morning. So I stuck it in the cold room. The next morning, the cold room, my LB was completely full of bacteria. Sure, the cold room makes it grow slower, but it was still able to completely fill my bottle, and I had to remake my LB again the next day. So just until it's dissolved, and then you're going to put it into a bottle. You're going to pour it into a bottle, and when you have it in this bottle, you may need to use a funnel if you cannot pour well into a bottle. This is our shaker bottle that's we're going to be growing bacteria in here and putting it in the shaker. So once you have the bottle, you're going to put a cap on it, and you want the cap to be very loose. If the cap is tight and you put it into the autoclave, you heat it up, one of two things may happen. Either the bottle will explode, or if the bottle does not explode, when you take it out and it's been hot and it starts to cool down, then when you take it out, it sucks that lid right back on. If you have it like cranked on tight, it'll suck that lid back down and you won't be able to get the lid off. So you want the lid to be just wiggly loose. And then you're going to put a piece of autoclave tape on it. And the autoclave tape, once it's been through the autoclave, it will turn with little black marks. And then those little black marks will let you know that this has been autoclaved if the lack of otherwise growing bacteria in here did not otherwise let you know that. On to the autoclave. So this is an autoclave. It's basically a big box inside that will have a certain amount of pressure and a very high temperature. Now we're going to be autoclaving at 121 degrees Celsius with enough pressure to keep our solution from boiling over. If we did not have pressure inside, our solution would boil over because remember, 100 Celsius is boiling point. So when you have something at 121 degrees, it's just going to boil over and boil out. So you can put your samples into the autoclave. If you have a sample with agar in it, which is going to get solid when it cools, you must have a catch basin beneath it to keep it from leaking out into the autoclave itself, because if it goes down the drain, it will solidify in the drain and block the inside completely. So you can put your sample in here. You close it up. And then you're going to turn it on. There are two different cycles of it. There's a liquid cycle and a dry cycle. The liquid cycle heats it up to 121 degrees for a certain minimum time. And that minimum time depends on the volume you have of solution. We have a little chart on the wall over here. So that minimum time, if you have 1 liter in there, is 45 minutes. If you have only smaller volumes, you can get away with a smaller amount of time. So that minimum time that you need to have it at 121 degrees allows for the bulk of the solution to reach 121 degrees and then be there for a minimum time of 20 minutes. It needs to be at 121 degrees for a minimum time of 20 minutes because otherwise spores will be able to grow. Simply boiling a solution might kill a lot of bacteria, but it will not kill mold spores. So having the 121 degrees is actually enough to kill almost all mold spores. Some hospitals have to do it at a higher temperature because they have resistant bacteria have developed. But in biotech, we don't tend to have a lot of those types of things like hospitals do. So 121 degrees for that certain minimum time is enough. So the difference between the liquid cycle and the dry cycle, if you have any solution at all in there, you have to do it on a liquid cycle because when the cycle is finished, it will release the pressure slowly to keep it from boiling over. So the temperature goes down while the pressure is going down. If you don't have any liquid at all in there, you can put it on a dry cycle. For example, if you're just autoclaving glassware or tips or something like that, you can have it on a dry cycle, and then the dry cycle will be taking the temperature down very quickly. It will release the vacuum immediately, but then it will put in a heating cycle at the end to evaporate all the water off. So we're going to push liquid cycle, and we're going to change the number of time to 45 minutes. And then we're simply going to push run. And it does a preheat, and then it does its heat, and we finish it up, and we come back in an hour when the autoclave is finished. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do when starting a glycerol stock is you're going to turn the UV light on in the area that you want. In this case, you can't really see through this because years of use have sort of cracked it and crazed it from exposure to UV light. You don't want to expose your eyeballs to UV light either, which is why you have a plexiglass covering to protect your eyeballs from the UV light. A couple minutes with the ultraviolet light on, with anything that you want to sterilize in the area, such as the outside of your bottle or the Bunsen burner equivalent that you're going to be using here to make sure that you can keep the tops of your bottles clean, for example, with sterile technique. You're going to put all of those under the UV light for a couple minutes. It's amazingly effective. When I was a new grad student, I said, how effective is this really? And so I took 2 plates and I spread a lawn of bacteria on both plates, and one of them I put under the UV light for only 5 seconds, and only a single colony grew out of that entire lawn of bacteria, and that was only for 5 seconds. So the UV light is amazingly effective at giving you a temporary sterile environment inside. It's not as good as a tissue culture hood, but it will keep everything very clean inside in terms of killing bacteria. The one thing that you do not want under the UV light is your glycerol stalk of cells, because it will kill any bacterial cells, including the cells in your glycerol stalk. So once you've had the UV light on for a couple minutes, sterilizing everything, such as your pipette and tips and everything that you're going to use, then you can turn it off and turn the regular light on. Okay, so this is a small bottle of LB that has been autoclaved. It has ampicillin added to it to prevent growth of any bacteria which does not contain our plasmid of interest. And to this, we are using our glycerol stalk. Now, this is what a glycerol stalk looks like, which is basically cells which have grown in LB. We've added glycerol to them, and they're good in the freezer for about 2 years. And when you can take some of your glycerol stalk and add it to your LB, then it will just start growing. So we're gonna flame off the top just to make sure it's clean before we go in there. We have a sterile pipette tip. We're gonna go straight in with our sterile pipette tip into our solution, and we're gonna get 200 microliters, and we're gonna add it right into the container. So straight into the container, and then making sure we close it loosely. We don't wanna close it tightly because our cells are gonna need oxygen to grow in here. So we're gonna use that little piece of tape of autoclave tape that we had. And so again, loosely, and then tape down to the container. So now it will be able to grow overnight in a shaker. We have a shaker right here. So shakers have different size spaces for the different sizes of bottles that you use. So this would be an example of a space for a smaller bottle. And all you do with the shaker, it's going to take it to 37 degrees. You can turn it on, you close the lid, and it will start shaking it at 37 degrees at whatever speed you say. So in this case, we're going to be shaking it at 200 revolutions per minute at 37 degrees, and our cells will grow.